Imagine a driver crashing a multi-million-dollar car at like 150 miles an hour. It's this massive impact,
Oh,
right?
right.
Brings out the safety flags and everything. And somehow, that very same crash legally allows a rival driver to speed up, harvest hybrid battery power, and actually steal pole position.
It sounds completely made up.
It really does. But welcome to the 2026 Austrian Grand Prix. What was supposed to be a pretty standard European race weekend just turned into this massive, earth-shattering shift in the championship narrative.
Yeah, it really did.
And it was all capped off by a safety controversy that has the entire paddock absolutely vibrating right now.
I mean, it's the absolute definition of a paradigm shift. We are looking at a weekend that just shattered all our baseline assumptions for the 2026 season.
Right.
The engineering hierarchy that we all thought was totally set in stone, it just completely dissolved in the Styrian Mountains.
It's vanished. And, to figure out how this happened, we've got a really fantastic stack of materials for this deep dive.
We do.
We are pulling directly from the raw, unfiltered post-race driver interviews. So we're actually hearing the exhaustion, the elation, straight from the cockpit.
Which is always the best stuff.
Exactly. And we're pairing that with an incredibly detailed technical breakdown from the veteran Spanish F1 analyst, Antonio Lobato.
His stuff is always so insightful.
Always. So our mission today is to unpack these shocking team performance shifts, the really harsh realities of modern budget caps, and, well, most importantly, that controversial rule loophole that everyone is arguing about. So, okay, let's unpack this.
I'm ready. Because to truly understand what happened in Austria, we have to look way past the final podium celebrations.
Right, the champagne doesn't tell the whole story.
Exactly. We have to analyze the underlying technical failures, the physics of the cars, and the intense psychological warfare happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, let's start with the crazy contrast in fortunes at the very front of the grid. George Russell took the race win.
A huge drive from him.
Seriously. This is his second victory of the year, which breaks a serious drought that stretches all the way back to race 1. And listening to his post-race interview, the relief was just palpable.
Oh, absolutely.
He talked about how long it's been since he, quote, sipped the champagne and had that sweetness. But the way he won this race, it was really all about control, wasn't it? He was on much older tires than the two guys hunting him down.
Yeah, Max Verstappen and his own Mercedes teammate, Kimi Antonelli.
Right.
And that is exactly where this concept of delta management won him the Grand Prix.
Delta management.
Yeah. This wasn't just a matter of, putting the pedal to the floor and hoping for the best.
Right, because that ruins the tire.
Exactly. Delta management means hitting a very specific pre-calculated lap time, a delta that is fast enough to keep your rivals behind you, but slow enough to prevent the surface temperature of your tires from overheating.
Because if they overheat, you degrade the rubber core.
Right. And Rithel had to bring his pit stop forward, meaning his tires were significantly older.
So he's on a knife edge.
Totally. If he panicked and pushed too hard to build a gap, those tires would have blistered, and he would have been a sitting duck in the final 5 laps.
But instead, he just hovered. He kept Verstappen and Antonelli in his mirrors, constantly managing a gap of about, 1.5 seconds?
Yeah, right around there.
So he essentially baited them into driving in his dirty aerodynamic wake, which ruins their tires while he's saving his own.
It was surgical precision.
Yeah.
Just brilliant. And, the contrast to his teammate is really striking. We have to talk about the Kimi Antonelli paradox.
Oh, man, yeah.
On paper, the kid looks untouchable, right? He has a 40-point lead in the championship.
Which is massive.
It is. But that cushion is masking some surprisingly chaotic driving. Antonelli has immense, undeniable raw speed, but just look at his lap 1.
It was messy.
By his own admission, he was all over the place. He ran wide at turn 1, then he ran wide again at turn 3.
Just a really sloppy opening lap that forced him into early wheel-to-wheel combat, which obviously cost track position.
And in Austria, track position paired with pit strategy is literally everything.
Yeah, and he also had some absolutely rotten luck with the virtual safety car.
Oh, brutal luck.
He was running a long strategy, hoping for a VSC to get a cheap pit stop, but the timing was a disaster. He pitted under green flag conditions twice, and mere seconds after he rejoined the track, the VSC was deployed.
And let's break down why that is so uniquely punishing at the Red Bull Ring.
Okay, yeah.
Austria is a really short circuit. A lap takes barely over a minute.
Right, it's super fast.
Exactly. So when you pit under normal racing speeds, you lose about 20 seconds just driving down the pit lane.
Which is a massive percentage of the lap time there.
Huge. But if you pit under a virtual safety car, the cars on track are forced to drive much slower.
Right, so that 20-second pit stop loses you significantly less track position relative to everyone else.
Exactly, and Antonelli practically skimmed the crossbar of a lucky break, but missed it entirely. The lap simply ran out before he could catch Russell.
Which brings us to the guy who actually managed to split the two Mercedes drivers. Max Verstappen, P2, driver of the day.
Yeah, quite the return to form.
Max is finally back on the podium, only his second of the year in 8 races. But I gotta push back here a little.
Okay, let's hear it.
Is Red Bull actually back, or is this just Verstappen being an absolute beast at his home track? Like, is this a permanent aerodynamic fix for their car, or just a sports team getting a temporary adrenaline boost from the home crowd?
Well, looking at the telemetry, it points to a genuine structural step forward for the car.
Really?
Yeah. Red Bull brought a massive, highly effective aerodynamic package specifically for their home race. The critical factor here is aerodynamic efficiency.
Producing downforce without producing drag.
Exactly. And Austria's layout demands exactly that, with its long straights and that fast-sweeping middle sector. Previous Red Bull upgrades failed because what they saw in their computer simulations didn't match the real world.
The dreaded correlation issue.
Right. But this weekend, the correlation was perfect. They leaped from being, the 4th fastest team, right back to the sharp end.
Wow, and that gave us the battle we didn't even know we were craving. Verstappen versus Lewis Hamilton.
Oh, that was fantastic.
Seeing them go wheel to wheel in the first stint immediately gave me flashbacks to the intensity of 2021. But it was strangely, I don't know, polite.
It was a beautiful throwback, but yes, decidedly cleaner.
Yeah, Hamilton gave him just enough space on the outside. Verstappen even had to dip a tire into the dirt, but they kept it clean.
It really highlights the psychological difference between fighting for a single race position versus fighting for a world championship. The desperation just wasn't there. It was just pure high-level racecraft.
Yeah, exactly. So the front of the pack got a massive shakeup, but we really need to pivot because the real shock of the weekend wasn't who found pace. It was the absolute catastrophic collapse of the teams we fully expected to dominate.
Oh, man.
I mean, Ferrari and McLaren. Let's start with the Scuderia. Reading the quotes from Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, it sounds like a support group meeting.
It was grim.
Hamilton was forced into a grueling 3-stop strategy because of tire degradation. Leclerc was so far off the pace, he literally let Lando Norris pass him and pitted out of sheer desperation. What on earth happened? Weren't they bringing a massive engine upgrade?
They were. They introduced this highly anticipated new duo engine system for this race.
Right.
This included heavily modified piston heads, which were designed to make the internal combustion process much more efficient, along with new fuel formulations.
Okay.
The whole goal was to give them the straight-line speed they desperately needed up the steep hills of Austria.
But an engine is only as good as the software telling it what to do, right?
Precisely. And Ferrari's energy mapping was fundamentally broken for this specific track layout.
Oh, no.
Yeah. In modern F1, the hybrid battery system deploys electrical energy to boost the combustion engine, right?
Sure.
And it's up to the engineers to program where on the track that battery deploys its power. Well, Ferrari mapped their cars to deploy a massive amount of electrical energy right at the start of the lap, from turn 1 up that massive hill through turn 3.
Okay, I think I see where this is going.
Right.
It's like taking your smartphone off the charger at 8 a.m., turning the screen brightness to max, leaving your GPS and a heavy mobile game running, and wondering why you're at 1% battery by 10 a.m.
That analogy hits the nail on the head. They created an absolute performance cliff.
Wow.
They were incredibly fast in that first sector, but from turn 4 onwards, the hybrid battery was just completely empty.
That's agonizing.
And the other teams mapped their energy much more evenly across the entire 2.7-mile lap. So while Ferrari was hauling a dead battery and a heavy combustion engine around sectors 2 and 3, their rivals just easily cruised past them.
Oh.
I mean, you can have the most advanced piston heads in the world, but if you don't have electrical deployment on the straights, you are just a parachute.
Just a completely self-inflicted strategic nightmare. And yet McLaren's weekend might be even more concerning, honestly.
Yeah, they just seem to vanish.
Exactly. Oscar Piastri managed P4, but Lando Norris got buried in traffic after a pit stop sequence and just couldn't recover. McLaren brought a brand new, highly touted front wing to Austria, but they didn't even bolt it onto the car for the race.
Which is wild.
Why would you spend millions developing a part just to leave it in the garage?
It all comes down to wind tunnel correlation again.
Ah.
They tested this new front wing during Friday practice, and the sensors on the real car did not match the airflow data they saw back at the factory in their computer models.
And when real-world airflow doesn't match the simulation?
It creates unpredictable balance issues, sometimes even aerodynamic bouncing or porpoising.
Right.
When a championship-contending team brings a major upgrade and lacks the confidence to run it because the data is confusing, that is a glaring red flag.
Definitely.
While Red Bull trusted their new aero and flew, McLaren hesitated.
And if the front of the pack is struggling with upgrades, the back of the grid is exposing a very harsh, financially constrained reality of modern F1.
Yeah, the midfield is brutal right now.
Let's look at it. Racing Bull's RB has officially leapfrogged Alpine. Pierre Gasly is fuming in his interviews, just begging for upgrades because RB is consistently operating with incredible efficiency and scoring points.
But the real tragedy of the weekend is further back. I mean, look at Williams and Aston Martin.
Right. Neither of these historic, well-funded teams brought a single piece of new carbon fiber to Austria. Not one upgrade.
Unbelievable.
And Carlos Sainz's weekend at Williams was nothing short of agonizing. On Saturday, he missed out on Q2 by 0.02 seconds.
0.02 of a second.
200.
Think about the psychological weight of that. You spend 72 hours preparing, the mechanics are sweating over the car, and you miss advancing by the literal blink of an eye.
Over practically nothing.
And what caused it? A microscopic snap of oversteer in the final corner. His rear tire slipped by a fraction of a degree, he lost momentum, and his qualifying was just over.
And Sunday was even worse for him. Heading into turn 4 on lap 2, he suffers a massive electrical failure.
Yeah, that was scary.
He smells smoke, and suddenly both of his front brakes are literally on fire. Total terminal failure. But as bad as that is for Williams, Aston Martin is in an even darker place.
Oh, absolutely.
Fernando Alonso finished dead last. He was a staggering 40 seconds behind the nearest car, which was Alex Albon. His teammate, Lance Stroll, had a terminal failure too. How does a team with Aston Martin's massive factory and resources end up dead last by 40 seconds?
Well, we've got to talk about the mechanisms of the budget cap.
Right.
Under the old rules from like a decade ago, a team like Aston Martin would just fire up their wind tunnel 24 hours a day, throw money at the problem, and overnight a new floor to the track every 2 weeks until something worked.
Just brute forcing it.
Exactly. But today, the FIA strictly rations how much money you can spend and, more importantly, how many hours you can spend running computational fluid dynamics, CFD, and wind tunnel tests.
So they literally aren't allowed to just build their way out of a problem quickly?
Precisely. If you get your initial car concept wrong, you are trapped.
Wow.
Aston Martin is forced to wait for one massive, cost-effective aerodynamic package. Until that arrives, they are effectively treating actual Grand Prix weekends as glorified, very public test sessions.
That's insane.
They're using Fernando Alonso to gather sensor data on engine drivability and energy management for a future upgrade that might be months away.
That is brutal. Alonso is out there racing on a Sunday, knowing he has zero chance of competing, just doing homework for the engineers at the factory.
Fighting with one arm tied behind their back.
Which brings us to the most explosive part of this deep dive. We've talked about Sunday's race, but the most deeply contentious moment of the entire weekend actually happened on Saturday during Q3 qualifying.
Yes, it did.
This is the moment that has massive implications for the future of the sport. Set the scene for us.
Okay, so it's the dying minutes of Q3. Everyone is on their final flying lap to set pole position.
The pressure's at its absolute peak.
Right. And Max Verstappen suffers a bizarre rear-end failure. The car snaps violently, and he crashes heavily into the wall.
And Red Bull later admitted this was a mechanical issue, not driver error. Right?
Yes. Now, in a crash of that magnitude, the standard protocol is an immediate double yellow flag. That strictly tells drivers to reduce speed significantly and be prepared to stop.
But the FIA race direction takes an agonizing 22 seconds to wave those double yellows.
22 seconds.
22 seconds of cars flying past a crash site at 150 miles per hour. That delay is bad enough. But here's where it gets really interesting, because the controversy is really about how George Russell handled the yellow flag when he finally saw it.
Oh, this is the crux of it all.
George Russell sees the yellow. The rule book states you must lift off the throttle. So Russell performs what the analyst Lobato calls a levantadita, a tiny microscopic lift.
Barely anything.
He drops his throttle pedal to exactly 0% to satisfy the telemetry requirement, but he never actually touches the brakes.
Let's break down the mechanics of what Russell did, because it's honestly an engineering masterstroke, but a massive regulatory nightmare.
Right.
By lifting his foot entirely off the accelerator, he creates a hard data point for the stewards. His telemetry proves his throttle was at 0.
The computer says he lifted.
Exactly. But by not braking, he allows the car to coast, carrying massive momentum through the corner. He barely lost a tenth of a second. But here is the critical part regarding the physics of an F1 hybrid system.
Right, the MGUK?
Yes, the motor generator unit kinetic.
Yeah.
When an F1 car coasts entirely off throttle, the rear axle turns the electric motor into a generator.
Okay.
It creates a small amount of drag, but it harvests that kinetic energy and sends a rapid charge straight into the battery.
So by lifting his foot just to obey the safety flag, he actively gained battery life.
Yes. Mercedes cars were notoriously low on battery by that final corner all weekend. That tiny zero-throttle coasting moment gave Russell a crucial burst of electrical charge.
Oh, wow.
When he got back on the throttle to exit the corner, he had more battery deployment available than he did on his previous lap. He lost a tiny fraction of a second on corner entry, but gained a massive amount of speed on the exit straights.
So he improved his overall lap time through a live crash zone and took pole position.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Isn't this just Formula One working the way it's supposed to? I mean, these are the smartest engineers and the most competitive drivers on the planet. The rule says lift. He lifted, he hit 0 throttle,
Right.
he obeyed the literal letter of the law. If it's unsafe for him to carry that much speed, isn't that purely race direction's fault for taking 22 seconds to throw a flag? Or for writing a vague rule in the first place?
I hear you, but the logic is only sound if you completely ignore the laws of physics and the reality of danger.
Fair point.
A zero-throttle lift doesn't instantly stop a car doing 150 miles per hour. He carried massive kinetic energy through a live crash zone. And Antonio Lobato, he was absolutely furious about this in his breakdown, and he is right to point out the terrible precedent it sets.
Right, because of the spirit of the rule.
Exactly. The spirit of a double yellow flag isn't find a telemetry loophole to harvest hybrid energy. The spirit is there was a shattered car, debris, and potentially vulnerable human marshals on the track. It wasn't genius, it was a massive gamble with safety.
But you're asking a racing driver, someone whose brain is literally hardwired to find thousandths of a second, to voluntarily give up pole position for a vague sense of spirit.
And look at the immediate fallout from that. KIMI Antonelli, Russell's own teammate, watched this happen, and his reaction was essentially, well, next time I just won't lift, or I'll just do a fake lift like George.
Oh, man, yeah.
If the FIA accepts a levantadita as legally sufficient, every driver from Formula 1 down to Formula 3 is going to start exploiting crash zones as battery charging opportunity windows. It transforms a vital safety protocol into a strategic game.
So what does this all mean for the rule book? I mean, if Russell legally manipulated the rule and the stewards didn't penalize him, the rule itself is fundamentally broken.
Lobato argues that the FIA needs to make a hard choice now. Either you throw an immediate red flag and invalidate everyone's laps the second there is a major crash, or you rewrite the telemetry rules so that a driver must demonstrate a tangible, significant drop in physical speed.
Not just a momentary lift of the pedal.
Right. Because if Russell had lost control while carrying all that momentum through the yellow flag zone, he could have easily hit Verstappen's crashed car. The sport was relying on luck, not a robust safety system.
I really want to turn this over to you, the listener. Put yourself in the cockpit for a second. You are strapped into a multi-million-dollar machine. Your entire life, your contract, your legacy is built around finding tenths of a second. You are fighting for pole position. You see a yellow flag, and you know there is a loophole. A tiny zero-throttle lift that the FIA legally accepts, which will charge your battery and potentially win you the race. Could you honestly resist taking that advantage?
It is the ultimate test of a driver's instinct versus their self-preservation. And this weekend proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that in modern F1, battles aren't just won with clever aerodynamic packages or tire degradation strategies, or even pure driving skill.
No.
They are won by ruthlessly exploiting the gray areas of the rulebook.
Which brings us back to where we started. That predictable symphony of a race weekend. It's an illusion. Beneath the surface, it is a chaotic, desperate scramble for every millimeter of advantage. And it leaves me with a philosophical thought I just can't shake. The cars are getting faster, the telemetry is getting more precise. Drivers have proven they will exploit absolutely any loophole, even in a crash zone. So, is it time for the FIA to completely automate yellow flag speed limits?
Wow.
To literally put self-driving limiters on the world's most elite analog racers, taking the throttle out of the driver's hands via software when lives are on the line?
That is the ultimate philosophical clash of modern motorsport right there. If you automate the speed limits, you prioritize safety, but you take away a fundamental element of human control.
Like, exactly.
But if the players can't be trusted not to game the system, taking the game away entirely might be the only option left.
A massive question for the future of the sport. It's something for you to mull over until the next race. Keep your eyes on the gray areas, everyone. That's where the real championship is decided.